London Living with Rizwan. Rizwan Rashid is here today with Kate Graham. And Kate is our looking to have a political bid to seek the Liberal Ontario Party, the leadership of that too. And Kate, I know you from Western University. Kate is PhD in political science. Kate had a great project, which I love, which was 70 mayors. You interviewed 70 different cities, and she actually went through all those mayors in order to find how the governors were, how they are impacting political and social
all across Canada.
Scenario all across Canada. And she's was chair of the Pillar Foundation here in London.
Yes. Wow.
You were also part in Women
Women in Politics. I have a podcast about women in politics.
Women in Politics. So she's kind of involved, and one of them is actually when we talk about the environment, she was part of the Reforest organization as well. So
you've done your homework.
So, so she's been doing a lot of stuff, and definitely Ontario Liberal Party is a hot topic and a tough one. So she came here today and wanted to ask you some very deep questions. But one of the questions to me always, and I'm not a political guy, my program is not politics. It's all about passion, I think.
Yeah.
Kate, one would say you're doing awesome. You've been known in the community. You're living your perfect life.
Living the dream.
Yeah. What passion drive you to become part of this? The whole process in politics.
Sure. So I believe politics really matters. There is nothing that affects more people's lives than politics. And so it is really important to me to see our political system working, to see it focused on the right things, and to see it as something where people want to be a part of it. It should be something that draws people in. Right now, politics turns a lot of people off.
Yes.
It is negative and divisive. People see leaders just arguing and fighting, and they don't want to be a part of it. And so in the last election, 43% of Ontarians didn't bother voting, which is more than who supported any party or leader. So we need to change that. And I am really excited about the opportunity we have right now with the Liberal Party. The party had its worst defeat in its history in 2018.
I'm glad she accepted that. Did you hear that?
It did. It's a fact.
This is the wrong thing. As a politician, you don't do that. But
we need to be honest about what happened. We have lost official party status. We have a lot of work to do to rebuild in ridings all across Ontario. But the reason I'm excited about it is this, is that it is hard to make transformative change in any organization, but particularly in a political party, when they've been in power for a long time, they're still in government. It can be very risk adverse. It can be difficult to make change. That's not the spot we're in right now. The party has nowhere to go but up. There's nothing to lose right now. And so we have a chance to think really big about who we are and what we stand for, and to rethink some of the things that we know have not been working about politics generally. So I am running because I believe that change is possible right now, and I believe that change can happen in the party when new people get involved. And so I'm running because I love having conversations with people who want to see something change in the province of Ontario, and instead of just complaining or worrying about it, they're willing to actually do something about it. And that do something is get involved. I'm doing that, and I'm asking other people to do that too.
Awesome. The part change you mentioned, we have heard this. I'm sorry, I'm going to say this. We have heard this.
Everybody says change.
Change.
Yes.
Since Obama talk about change is everywhere. And being involved, a number of people got involved on different political figures, different political parties, but they didn't get that reward. They still feel disconnected. Why change of Kate is going to make that change?
So there are a lot of things I want to see change, but one of them is I think we've become too focused on partisanship. So you hear a lot of political leaders talk, and it's all about how great their ideas are and their plan and their party, and how the other leaders and parties, we should be not believing what they have to say, or we should be afraid of some of their ideas. And I don't buy that. And I don't think a lot of people believe that anymore. There is a lot more in common between people who are conservative and liberal and NDP and Green and independent and people who don't particularly care about political parties. Everybody would agree that we want to see a strong economy. Everybody would agree that we want families doing well, that we want children to have access to an amazing education. Sometimes we have different opinions on how.
Correct.
And that's okay. that's what politics is supposed to be about. You know, people who have different ideas who can actually listen to each other, they can respect one another, and they make better decisions because they were able to work on it together. So I want to see a less partisan form of provincial government. You know, I spent a decade at London City Hall, a level of government where there aren't political parties.
I forgot that.
Yeah, that's
yes.
okay, that's right. But you know, it doesn't always work. But when it does, it is a beautiful thing. And so I would like to see our political parties working better together. I think to do that, we have to change the culture inside politics, and it cannot be about, you know, of course these things are important, but it cannot just be about winning and, you know, getting people's support. It has to be about solving problems. So the kind of change that I want to see is where politics is squarely and laser focused on people and their quality of life, and addressing the things that get in the way right now of people living an amazing quality of life. That's the kind of change I want to see.
Wow.
Plus lots of more specific policies.
Yes.
But that's the big change.
Well, the big BHAG goals.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But now the question comes in, Kate, is they are good goals, and I believe you understand that part, and you are the best person to do it because you have learned it, you have taught other people. In that criteria, you fit in terms of academically. Now, this is practical part of it.
Yep.
Now, as on a practical part, I'm going to ask you this question. So you were talking about everything about people. What have you done for the people so far? I know you're part of this organization. So give any example that you particularly made a change in people's life.
Sure. So one example would be when I worked at London City Hall. We had some really significant and awful incidents of racism in the city. And these were things that, like, front page of the newspaper, you know, were getting people really angry. But even worse than that, for people who experience, you know, racism every day in the city, it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And so London City Council said, you know, we need to do something about this. Too many people are experiencing racism. And I knew that, you know, I do not have the answers. I'm not someone who experiences racism. The answers were not inside City Hall. And so we put a call out to Londoners and said, hey, community, we need some help here. We need to understand what are the experiences that you're having and what can we do to solve them. And so we didn't know if, you know, 5 people would come out or 20 people would come out. We had about 250 people offer to be part of this team. I will say it was more like an overrepresentation of mothers whose children were experiencing racism.
In schools?
Here in London,
okay.
Yes. And so this group got together, and I had the wonderful privilege actually of getting to facilitate and lead these meetings, but really sit back and listen and just let people talk about the experiences that they've had, and with each experience, what they would like to see. So sometimes it was, you know, simple things. It was that, you know, a child was experiencing racism in the classroom, and what is definitely needed is more education for sometimes other students, sometimes people within the school. And those are solvable problems, but we need to give people the space to identify what they've experienced and what they would like to see happen. So we put together what was the city's first and only community diversity and inclusion plan. It includes a lot of specific strategies. And the reason that I'm very proud to have been a part of that work is because it wasn't about some great thing that I did. Quite the opposite. It was about giving a platform for people who are experiencing something that's unacceptable to come together, to build a community, and to be able to identify things that we together can do to solve problems. And that basic model is what I want to see happen a lot more, where, you know, there are lots of problems in this province, and there are people who understand those things. You know, Indigenous communities, for example, they understand what that reality is like in a way that I never will. And so I want to see a kind of politics where it is about reaching out to people and saying, hey, it seems like something is going on here that is not okay, and you need to help me understand what that looks like and what I can do to help you. And so I want to see policy making take that form more often.
You know, Kate, I'm going to admit on camera that I usually do not appreciate politicians because they have that words only. But when I was listening to you, you actually admitted that part of it, that Liberal Party got less, or got into the state because they stopped listening to professionals, they stopped listening to the community, they stopped connecting with them who are the real deal makers, right? And accepting that is a tough one as a politician, as being nominee, because you might see that pressure coming too. So my next question would that be, what are your plans? How are you going to be able to rebuild this party in Ontario?
And if I could just speak to your comment earlier,
Yes.
so I think we need to think about what our expectations are of politicians. So, if you're looking for someone who is perfect and knows everything and has all the answers, I am not the candidate. I am far from all those things. I want to see more humility, and I want to see humble people who acknowledge what they know and what they don't know, and are quite willing to rely on other people. And I am one of those people. I'm well aware that there are lots of things that I don't know and need to rely on people who know more than I do. In terms of the plan,
That's. I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you because I actually heard this in front of a crowd. She said that because somebody was asking some very detailed question about industrialization, the environment issue, and the carbon and heating. And I looking at Kate right in her eyes, and she said, "I think you know more than me. And you need to be part of this in order to make it fix. So just don't talk, but come together, make a team, and do that." It's guts to say that, and I love that. I actually really did, and I felt connected right there.
Oh,
Sorry, I
that's
interrupted.
good. No, that's good. Thanks for sharing that. That's helpful. So in terms of the plan,
Yes.
so as I said, our focus is on people and well-being. I want every single Ontarian to live a happy, healthy life. And right now there are things that for too many people are getting in the way of that. And so our priorities are the things that right now threaten that way of life.
Okay.
So number one is climate change. This is an existential threat. The clock is ticking, so we need to make Ontario carbon neutral as fast as we possibly can. So number one, make Ontario carbon neutral. Number two is about affordability. So there are lots of things that cause significant financial pressure that put families, it gets them into trouble. Things that they just cannot handle. So sometimes it's an aging parent who needs to find long-term care and the costs are too high or they can't get in. Sometimes it's about the cost of post-secondary education, where a young person doesn't have access to everything
funding.
that comes with an education and the opportunities afterwards. Sometimes it's childcare. For young families who have a couple of children, it can be a crushing cost on their monthly budget, and it often keeps women out of the workforce. So making life more affordable and looking at those things that are causing too intensive a financial pressure and that we as the collective need to help with is really important to me. Number three is about jobs and opportunities. We're sitting in London right now where if you look at the numbers on this, you will see that there are a lot of people who not only don't have work right now, but have stopped looking. We measure that through something called the participation rate.
Okay.
And so we have to be creating jobs and opportunities all over the province. We know that, in London, for example, for a long time, the manufacturing sector was very strong, the automotive. We've seen decline there. We need to be working proactively to transition those sectors. Electric vehicles, we talked about that earlier today. That's a real growth area, an area that I'd like to see Ontario lead. Number four is about empowering people and communities. This is really important to me. I spent a decade at London City Hall. And, Ontario is a big place. The same idea might not make as much sense in London or in Toronto or in Northern Ontario. And so I would like to see more empowerment of communities, hospitals, of schools, all across the province so that people who know a situation or a problem are more empowered to be able to solve those problems. She actually touched base on all the real issues what people are facing. The carbon tax, which is kind of contradictory because now the Ontario province is debating against federal what they had. So I don't want to get into that debate because that's a huge. But you have addressed it all, and I'm glad you actually have the ground reality of this, and that sets it apart. But now I'm going to ask you the flip question. Go for it.
Because you are going to plan, you have great plans in it, but now for Ontario leadership, there are 6 candidates.
Yes.
Out of 6 candidates.
6 wonderful candidates.
6 wonderful, fabulous candidates. Out of one is a fabulous Kate. Now, the 3 are seasoned politician, I would say.
Yes.
And you are the freshman going along with 2 others. Why do you think you will win?
Sure. So I am definitely an unusual candidate in lots of ways. So I'm the youngest.
Okay.
I don't live in the GTA, and I'm not a former cabinet minister. And if this was the last leadership race, where the person became the premier the next day and it was a different context, I'm not sure that I would be the right person then. But right now, this is about rebuilding a party and getting a party ready to head into the next election. And I believe that it is time for new voices, and not just who the leader is, but all across the party. So I am running because I think in 2022, the party needs to show that we heard the message of the last election, that we have changed. So it's both a blessing and a curse to be not a long time in politics. It means that I don't have the experience in Queen's Park. My experience is outside Queen's Park.
Yeah.
But it also means that I don't carry any of the baggage of the previous government.
True.
And so for people who are looking for the party to turn a page and say, Ontario, we heard you, we are different, we have transformed, I'm the candidate for them.
Good point. If you got to change, you got to bring the new person in. Yeah. So on that token, I have, some of my community members has asked me this to ask you this question. And one of them is same thing. You mentioned that you're not from GTA and most votes are in GTA. So how are you going to address those or reach out to them?
Yeah, so I'm right now in this leadership race. Every day I'm traveling to multiple communities all over Ontario. But of course, because there are so many people there, spending a lot of time in the GTA. I think that the thing that we need to be doing, though, is the same no matter where we are.
Okay.
And that's reaching out to people and listening. And so, yesterday I was in downtown Toronto. Last week I was in Brampton. I was in Mississauga a couple of days ago.
Okay.
I've also been in Northern Ontario and Eastern Ontario and Southwestern Ontario. And every day I'm sitting down with people and saying, hey, tell me what your experience has been. What do you want to see in the party? What do you want to see in the province? What would it take for you to support the Liberal Party going forward? And what you quickly find is that the answer to those questions is different depending on where you are. So the GTA is a really important part of Ontario. We need to do a good job of listening to people in the GTA about the things they care about. And we also need to do a good job of listening to people in the rest of the province.
Yeah.
The party has slowly lost support, particularly outside the GTA. And if we want to be successful going forward, we have to earn back that support. So, being a candidate who grew up in a small town and lives in London outside the GTA, I think is a real strategic advantage for the party. But it cannot be at the expense of the GTA. I love Toronto. I love the communities around Toronto. I love the 905. I and the other candidates need to do as much as we can to hear from people about the things they care about.
Beautiful. Okay, wonderful. We are here with Kate Graham. She is opening up bid for leadership of Liberal Party in Ontario.
Yes.
We're going to take a short commercial break and we'll be right back and continue talking to her about what are the strategic things, and I'm going to ask her some tough questions. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. London Living with Rizwan, and Rizwan is here today with Kate. Kate Graham is going for the Ontario Liberal Party Leadership, and she is interacting and answering your questions and making sure you understand. I think before I ask anything, Kate, would you like to, tell us your how they can contact you, your page, your website, your phone number, anything they can contact you?
Sure. So I would love to hear from you. The easiest way to connect with me is through our campaign website, which is Kate for Leader, all one word, kateforleader.ca. Through there, you can connect to us in lots of ways. You can email us, you can call us by phone, you can connect with us on social media. You can also sign up to be a part of the team or get involved in the campaign. So kateforleader.ca is the easiest way to get in touch.
Awesome. Beautiful. Now, the question one of my colleagues asked me from the community, what message do you have for Ontarians who felt alienated or unhappy with the party itself?
So if you are feeling a little disillusioned with politics right now, If you're feeling like maybe the party that you support, Liberal or otherwise, has let you down, my message to you would be that things are not going to change unless you get involved. They don't change on their own. When we sit at home and complain or mean tweet or any other expression, those things can be helpful outlets, but they don't make change. The way you make change is by stepping forward and getting involved. That's what I'm doing in running for leader. That's what I am asking people to do in getting involved in this race. So if you want to see a better, improved Ontario Liberal Party, I need you to get involved. Become a member, join a campaign team, come up with policy ideas that the party can start talking about, get involved in your riding, donate money that can help support the campaigns that you support. Any of those things can be really helpful steps forward to change our party and our province.
And now, I actually asked her in an earlier version of this, why Kate, why you, why the change is important to you, why instead of having a peaceful life, you're jumping into politics and doing all this. But she had that passion, she had desired, so I'm sure you have looked at it. But now jumping into this, one of the questions was that what are the 3 priorities you wanted to implement when you become the premier? I want you to think big and look at the future. Not
just 3 things?
Just 3 things, yes. So
okay.
Top 3 things.
Top 3 things. Okay, well, our priorities are making Ontario carbon neutral, making life more affordable, and creating jobs and opportunities. Those feel kind of broad, though. Are you looking for more concrete, specific?
No, I think if you elaborate only one, that will help them to see, because most of the people say these things, but then you have to set there is a big goal is great, but then what is the action step? How are you going to implement? How to bring the resources bring in? What's the manpower? What's the change in law will implement that will happen? Because people want to know how it will happen. Okay,
so let's talk about making Ontario carbon neutral then. So we know for most people, probably for you and I, our main source of emissions is 2 things, and this is like 75% of our emissions.
Correct.
Transportation and buildings. So let's take transportation. So I know that a lot of people are sitting in often single occupant vehicles, stalled on a 400 series highway, parked because they don't have any other good option. And that is not okay in Ontario anymore. So I want to see a very dramatic expansion of transit. For me, it's a climate issue, but it's also about affordability and quality of life. So in many communities in Ontario, for example, getting from Toronto to London, if you get past 8:30 at night, there's no way to get home other than in a car or taking a Greyhound bus that gets you home at 1:45 in the morning.
Correct.
Not good enough. So our transit plan, which you can find at kateforleader.ca, includes a lot of different ideas, but one of them is about expanding GO service and including a fleet of electric buses that connect communities all across Ontario. For people who want to be in a vehicle, we also need to be transitioning towards electric. We know this is the future. Ontario is the only province where the sale of electric vehicles went down in the last year. We need to move in the other direction. So we are proposing matching the federal government's incentives. Expanding where you can get a charge by investing in that infrastructure. People talk about having charge anxiety. Having to go too far and not sure if they can charge their electric vehicle. So we've got to fix that. And I believe that we also have a great economic opportunity. Ontario's traditionally been a phenomenal place for the automotive sector. This is the future. We need to be creating jobs, but also creating greener ways for people to get around. So those would be some things that I think would really help. They'd certainly benefit my life. I think they'd benefit the lives of people all across Ontario.
So it looks good in terms of environment. It definitely will make an impact from the environment by reducing carbon emission from this transportation and getting this rapid transit or the electrical thing. But how are you going to fund it? Where the funding will come?
Well, right now we are already spending a lot on transportation in every way. So the amount of money that we spend on roads, on bridges, on infrastructure, that if we don't do something fundamentally different, we're going to have to keep making it bigger and bigger and bigger. Let alone, forget the government side of things, us as individuals. For most families, the total cost of owning a car, each car, is about $10,000 a year. When you factor in the cost of owning that car, gas, insurance, having to get repairs, snow tires, all of those things. And so as a society, we are spending a lot on our current modes of transportation. And we know that public transit is more efficient. The infrastructure costs, buying a bus, which can hold as many people as multiple vehicles, it's a more efficient way to go. But it also, if you have been driving through the GTA recently, when I was at Brampton, I was very frustrated. I was about half an hour late for the meeting I was going to because I was going about 10 kilometers an hour. It's not working right now. And there are real costs to that. There are productivity costs, quality of life costs. So I think we need to think about all of those things. We're spending a lot on transportation right now. I'm just not sure we're spending it in the right places.
Okay. So you folks, you have heard, that Ontario is looking for the emission part of it. That would be one of the top priority. And I think it's environmentally we have to be responsible. We have to look for that and how it will impact. One of the questions that actually from our community came together, and I think you touched base a little bit on in terms of racism or they faced racism, and you have worked on that too. So you will understand it and you can address this. How communities that includes visible minority to be engaged in governance. So now one part is that you defended them or help them come out of this zone, but now the other part is how they can be in governance.
So for way too long, we have seen positions of power in this country dominated by older, white, straight, affluent men.
She said that.
I did. It's true. And when you have, about 10% of the population making decisions for 100% of the population, that is a big problem. So we need to see a greater diversity of voices in decision-making roles in this country at every level, municipally, provincially, federally, in communities. And so that's not an easy thing to fix, but I think it means we need to reach out to communities of people who are traditionally underrepresented or whose voices we don't hear enough, and find leaders in those communities who are willing to step forward, run for office, get involved in the party, run as a delegate. This is one of the reasons that I'm so grateful for the chance to have this conversation is you are speaking to a large audience of very smart, talented, committed people. And if you are a part of a group that you don't see enough of in politics, then we need more from you. We need you to run. We need you to get involved in the campaign. And so I think the only way that we see this change is when we acknowledge that it's a problem and invite new voices into the discussion. And I'd like to see that happen through our campaign, through the party, and ultimately in the province of Ontario.
All right. That was it, my questions. Okay. So Kate, what would be the last message you wanted to give to our audience who would be all across Canada, most typically a South Asian community? What was the message from you to them?
So I would just say thank you very much for tuning in. And if you are feeling like things in this province are not going the way that you want them to, please interpret that as a little cue that it's time for you to get involved. For me, it's that cue that has led me to run, knowing that there is something that I can contribute. And if you are feeling that same way, I would encourage you to get involved in this race. I would love to have you as a part of my campaign team. It is a fun, diverse, exciting group that you would add a lot to. So get in touch with us at kateforleader.ca. And as I said, if you've got ideas, time, or talent that you want to share, we would really benefit from your involvement.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kate.
Hey,
I appreciate for your time.
Thank you.
And
Mutual.
Kate Graham for Ontario Liberal Leadership. Look for her, find out more. My idea was to give her a kind of an intro part of there. We wish you good luck in your campaign, and we wish you for winning this leadership and then further. I think it was a preliminary. I think we are introducing her as a Londoner right now, as I want to talk about, as my program is London Living. But I would like to invite her back once she won this the leadership nomination and then going into the real campaign. We'll bring her back, and actually then we'll talk about the real issue, the action plan. I think that will make more sense. She have asked if you want to know more, check out her website. I think they will have contact information. Reach out to this. And I ask all my community. I think that's more importantly because we can all talk. We can all I don't want to say condemn, but we all feel bad about what's not happening, what's not doing, what is not doing for you. So this is the time. Get involved. Know your candidate. Seek their understanding, and then look for it. Because it does not matter what political party you are, or what political, the affiliation you have, but you have to be involved. Because that all matters. If you're going to sit home or sit in your own gathering and only talk, it will not happen. It won't change anything. It won't change anything for you. It won't change anything for your family, for your community, and overall Canada. We as a Canadian need to make difference in any capacity. And I think today is just a starting. I think today we chat about that. I know you all probably heard about this before because there were federal election, provincial election, and all that. But this is how we start rolling. This is how, one of the questions my community had asked, how our community or the visible minority can get in governance. This is the way it is, that you get involved in the candidates, get involved in the parties, and become significant. Come out of the shadows, come out of the insignificance, and make happen, because that's what everybody's looking after, because there is no other choice.
Well said. Very good. Yes.
London Living with Rizwan Rashid is here with Kate. I'm signing it off and wishing her good luck.
Thank you.
And until next time, keep watching London Living with Rizwan. Keep watching London Living with Rizwan.
Keep watching London Living with Rizwan.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Bye.